Ah, yes, Andor, the one Star Wars show that dared to ask, what if we made a sci fi series where the Empire is evil but competent? The rebels are morally grey, and not everyone's trying to sell you Funko Pops every 5 minutes. Welcome to Shay Rants, your safe space from chirpy, brand approved content creators pretending that everything's fine. Today we're diving into Andor Season 2. Not reviewing it, because let's face it, that implies you were entertained. We're here to talk about structure, story, canon, and how this might just be Disney's last gasp of actual writing before we go back to force sensitive broom boys or lightsaber helicopters. Let's rewind. Season 1 was shockingly a show for adults. I know, it confused a lot of people. There were no baby Yodas, no parkour inquisitors, and no one shouting, somehow Palpatine returned. Instead, we got Cassian Andor, a guy who starts out murdering people in alleys, stealing from salvage yards, and basically being that one friend who never pays you back, but shows up at your funeral with tears in their eyes and asking for cash. I have to say though, I was definitely in the boat where I just couldn't understand why Andor was being made. This is pre season one. The announcement came, and I just thought to myself, why would I want to watch a show about Andor, a side character for a spin off film? But, he went from apathetic cynic to someone who decides that maybe, just maybe, space fascism is worth fighting against. And I really thought his arc in that series was amazing. You could really sense the tension and how lost he was in that first season, and sort of you can see the structure coming in as with Saw Gerrera meeting them and understanding how it actually works outside of the petty crime life that he's sort of led, and now he's sort of getting into the more structured fight. They do a really good job of showing this sort of building over time. So this starts with the Aldani heist, where it's sort of a mix between structured and petty crime. So they're, robbing the Empire, and suddenly then they remember they have security cameras. So they're not prepared for all of the outcomes, which then leads to Cassian Andor, staying on some beach resort planet, and he's there thinking, oh, I've got away with murder, essentially, stashing his cash away. He's got pretty women around him, and then he sort of bumps into the Empire who are doing their standard patrols. And it's at this point he starts to realize the game is against them. There is no fairness to the game. Yeah, you can go and do a robbery, but you're following whatever rules you may think exist, but actually the Empire will win. The house always wins. And this then leads on to Andor being locked up in Narkina 5 prison, the world's worst open planned office. Andy Serkis gives the speech of a lifetime and then gets left behind, which we will never forgive Disney for. However, those episodes were just incredible. The building and the storytelling there was just so good. I'm super excited to see if Andy Serkis appears again in season two. I just think it was never confirmed, was it, that what happened to that character? So I think he may appear in season two. Obviously, I have no knowledge of this, but one can live in hope. And again, I want to stress the building of tension here. So we see Cassian go from this petty crime, it's all under cloak and dagger. No one knows he's murdering people in the corner here and he's getting away with it. Then that led into the heist, which then is sort of a bit more upmarket, but still half between organized and disorganized and petty. And then that lands him in prison where he sees the stakes of what he's doing and he's realizing actually, everything I'm doing has a consequence, but also there's a consequence for the wider galaxy. It's unjust, it's unfair, and the cards are stacked against us. And then I think that leads to the ultimate Ferrex uprising, where his mum's hologram ghost essentially yells, "Fight the power," and everyone obliges by flipping the Imperial equivalent of a police car, and yeah, fighting back an open rebellion. And I think this is where he realizes it's the turn for him. He's thinking, I need to actually fight back. I can't just hide in the shadows and just coast along and a little bit of petty theft here and a little couple of things on the right here. So I think that's where we're sort of headed for season two, where he's actually he's fully in the game, ready to go, with a plan, with a structure. Ultimately, Season 1 showed us that the rebellion isn't a clean Instagram filter, it's mud, blood, and shouting one way out until your throat gives out. This is how the actual alliance started. No capes, no chosen ones, just people who are done being stepped on, pushed around, and made to feel inferior. Moving forward, Season 2 is doing something dangerous in modern TV. It's planning. Each 3 episode arc jumps forward a year, ending right before Rogue One. That's 4 arcs, 4 years, 4 opportunities for Disney to make us feel something other than nostalgia fatigue. We'll probably see Cassian go from morally grey Han Solo knockoff to burned out space Jason Bourne with PTSD. Every arc will end with either a victory that feels hollow or a failure that feels inevitable. It's like watching the rebellion slowly come together, but with more coffee stained tables and fewer pew pew sounds. And in some ways, I'm kind of hoping each arc might end with a major moment in the rebellion's history, like the founding of the Rebel Alliance, key battles, or major losses like the Gorman Massacre, which led to Mon Mothma's public break from the Senate. Expect to see the show mirror the slow corrosion of the Empire's grip and the equally messy rise of the rebel factions trying to unify. Right, let's take a sidestep and talk about the show's power, and that lies within its characters, who aren't just archetypes, they're layered. Let's talk about who's coming back and what to expect. The first one's obvious: Cassian Andor. We expect a full transformation into the spy from Rogue One that we saw, someone hardened, paranoid, but principled in a way that's hard to see. My prediction is he'll be asked to make more increasingly cruel decisions for the cause, which will challenge his ethics. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Next, we have Mon Mothma. Her scenes in Season 1's hinted at a political chess game and personal sacrifice. She'll likely be more radical now, and my prediction is her alliance with Luthen Rael will deepen, possibly leading to the moment she severs ties with the Senate. And I think that ties in nicely with Luthen Rael's arc. He's a bit of a wild card. His monologue about sacrificing everything for the future he'll never see is still so iconic. My prediction is he won't survive the season, but his actions will galvanize the rebellion and push them forward. And I think someone to expect to see more of is Saw Gerrera. He'll be showing his extremism, setting up his delusioned version of Saw in Rogue One. I don't think he'll be quite as jaded as he was in Rogue One, but well on the way. Some of the tie-in games, Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order, he certainly comes off as someone who's who's seen his fair share of trauma, and that's led to his portrayal in Rogue One. So yeah, really looking forward to that. Forrest Whitaker's incredible. And then there's a couple of confirmed returns or new additions. The first being K2SO. I know his appearance has been highly anticipated. I know he's got quite a cult following, which is awesome. He's hilarious. But I think he'll be introduced maybe halfway through the story, maybe in the final arc, where you'll start to see them get together. Maybe. Now that I think about it, they were quite close. They sort of had a bond in Rogue One, if that's even possible with the droid. But yeah, that's what I felt. And the other would be Orson Krennic. So I don't know if he'd be like the young rising star. By this point, he's probably been working on the Death Star project for, I don't know, a good 10 years. So he's probably quite well known, but it might be interesting to see if there's a bit of tension between him trying to gain ground or gain position, and a following within the Empire, especially with Tarkin around to sort of try and step all over him. So yeah, that'll be really interesting to see. I think ultimately I'm so happy that these actors have come back and aren't just too big for a TV series. And yeah, it's just fantastic. All here for Star Wars. I now want to take a look at some of the thematic exploration that might show up in Andor Season 2. What Andor nails is that revolutions aren't born from heroism, they're forged in moral compromise. sacrifice without recognition. For example, in season 1, they gave us characters like Kino Loy, who never got a taste of that freedom. Expect more tragic fates in season 2, people who die for a cause they never get to see succeed or into fruition. Radicalization will likely see characters get more extreme over time, echoing real-world revolution dynamics. Saw Gerrera's arc is a key here. Spycraft, mistrust, and betrayal. If Rogue One taught us anything, it's that rebels often had to do terrible things. This season will likely dive deep into the espionage, with Cassian losing more of himself into this seedy underworld to achieve the moral righteousness he needs. And finally, the rebellion as a mosaic. The show shows that the rebellion wasn't one cohesive movement, it was made up of fragments, often in conflict with each other. This chaos is what makes the unified alliance later feel earned. This isn't good versus evil. This is shades of how much of myself do I give up to stop the monsters? No one here is getting medals, they're all getting forgotten, and that's the point. The Empire isn't scary because of Sith Lords, it's scary because of the bureaucrats and the quotas. The Alliance wasn't born overnight, it was a messy mosaic of people who hated each other, but hated the Empire more. And this show isn't plot armor. People die, they fail, and the Empire doesn't get beaten by a hug or a Skywalker. I saw a really interesting video from the guys who make South Park, who said that the way they write their stories, that if you have between your story beats, this happens because, and this happens because, then you're kind of screwed. You're not telling your story that effectively. Instead, it should be this happens and therefore, or this happens, but. Those are two things that I think Andor does really well. The cause and effect, everything sort of just makes sense in the universe that it establishes, and it works well within the already established George Lucas Star Wars that we all know and love. So what's season 2 shaping up to be? A beautifully bleak story about how rebellions aren't born from hope, they're carved out of fear, sacrifice, and the slow, soul-destroying realization that no one is coming to save you. And in a franchise that's now mostly been reduced to theme park queues and corporate synergy, this might be our last chance to see what Star Wars could have been. I really hope not. So, what do you think? Will Andor stick the landing, or are we one somehow K2SO returned away from disaster? Let me know below. Like the video if you enjoy suffering, and subscribe if you want more lore, analysis, and unapologetic sarcasm with your space drama. As mentioned before, episodes 1 through 3 drop tomorrow, and I'll be back throughout this week to break down on how it all fits into the timeline, what's working, and what Disney might be quietly panicking about behind the scenes. Until then, remember, rebellions are built on hope and well-written scripts.